All right, good afternoon. I am literally straight off the practice field today, so we're on a slightly later schedule this week, just due to school not being in session. So, happy Thanksgiving to everybody, and really good win for us on Saturday versus Cincinnati. Finished up home slate 5-1. I thought we controlled the game on both line of scrimmages. I thought that's where we won it. Really happy for all those guys that walked on Saturday, played their final home game. Glad they got to finish with a win. I'll kind of recap the game. Special teams, thought the positives were this. We only punted one time, and I thought our coverage was good. Our kickoff coverage has been much improved. They tried to bring one out, and I think we tackled it inside the 20 and got a block in the back penalty as well because we did a really nice job with the technique that we coach, and they had to start within the 10. Our field goal protection was good. Field goal block, we got really good push. Thought we should have blocked one. Special teams wise, Ollie's got to keep that punt out of the end zone. I think we had a chance to pin him inside the 10. He kicked it in the end zone. And then our punt return group's got to do a better job giving Preston some space. We did a much better job of that early in the year. Not good enough on Saturday. Defensively, I think the positives, fast start, 4 punts to start the game. And I thought we held I think they were 5th in the country in rushing coming in the game. We held them well below their average. Both rushing and total offense well below their average. And, Kiner, who I think is really good running back, we held him to under 60 yards. And so I thought our run fits were really good. I thought we got a bunch of hats to the ball. We still missed some tackles, but we had guys there to cover it up. And we got improved. We didn't finish very well in the fourth quarter. And so we had some different guys out there, but we still got to play the way you're supposed to play. And then we got to get some takeaways. They did not turn the ball over. And we had our hands on two big missed opportunities on interceptions that both of those may have resulted in points. So offensively, positives, we ran the ball for 424 yards and averaged 9.8 yards per play. And so held the ball for 35 minutes, 8 of 11 on end-of-possession downs. And so a lot of explosive plays. The things that weren't good enough, we had 2 penalties that killed drives. The first drive of the game, we're driving, we get a holding penalty, and then we miss a field goal. Second one, we get a tripping call, which was the right call on Jaheim, and then we throw an interception that the ball should have never been thrown. And so we got to clean up those things. But finishing up Cincinnati, players of the week, offensive lineman of the week, there's a guy that was really challenged all week. Probably had the toughest matchup on the entire field against their best player, and he graded out 95%, had 43 production points, 10 great blocks, 2 knockdowns, and Zach Frazier he played really, really well. And that'll be a game that'll help him as he gets into senior bowl and all the draft stuff. So special teams player of the week, we did special teams this week. We really didn't do anything that would necessarily change the game, but we didn't do anything to hurt us. But 2 guys that over the course of the last few weeks have done a nice job. First one is Day Hawkins. He's really disruptive on our punt block team in the middle, and then he's on our kickoff team. He's 270-something pounds running down on kickoff and does a nice job there. And then E.J. Horton, who's been a gunner on our punt team and running down on kickoff. He's first one down on kickoff, first one down on punt, doing a really nice job in those coverage areas. Our defensive player of the week, playing his last home game, Lee Koba had 10 tackles, a sack, a quarterback hurry, and really played a great fundamental game, his best fundamental game that he's had. Offensive player of the week, two obvious choices, didn't want to choose between, but Jaheim had 21 rushes, 210 yards, a touchdown, a reception for a touchdown of 75 yards, just a kind of a huge game for him. And that's been coming. He's been really productive here in the last month of the season, month and a half, I should say. Then Garrett with a bounce back, 11 rushes, 154 yards, 3 touchdowns, 12 of 19 passing for 210 and a touchdown. So big, really big bounce back game for him. I was happy for him. The Blue Collar Award that we give on offense, Traylon Davis and Jaquay Hubbard. Jaquay played his best game of the year. He played a lot of football here. He's really physical in the game. And then Traylon was really key. We ran a lot of counter where he was the second puller, and I thought he played his best game. And defensively, Jared Bartlett played his best game. May not show up in the stat, but really big reason why we fit the run game so well was how he played to the boundary. And we cleaned up some mistakes that he made, and he ran out and played really good fundamental and did his job within the defense. And then Ben Cutter played well. Only had 4 tackles on the day, but did a nice job spilling the football, getting it back to other people. And so our scout team players, C.J. Cole on offense, who starts on 2 special teams for us, turned into a really good special teams player. Scout defense player Corey McIntyre, who played in the game, really should have had a sack. But he's coming along. He's going to be a really good player here. I'm glad we get to redshirt him, but he's going to be a really good player. And then our scout special teams player is Teran Fitzpatrick, who's from George Washington down Charleston. And so he did a nice job. And then our Juice Award, our Energy Award, Grayson Malashevich, who's battled back from a couple injuries and back on our punt return team starting, but he had great energy in the game. So that's kind of a wrap-up on Cincinnati. Moving on to Baylor. I tell our guys, if you want to be a pro, this is the week where you're kind of in training. There's no class in session. It's just kind of football, and I guess the secondary piece would be food. But it's all football, and so we're going to go to Baylor. It's a tough place to play. We haven't had a lot of success there as a program, and a lot of respect for Dave Aranda. I think as a person, as a head coach, and as a defensive mind, a lot of respect for him. If you look at him from a special teams standpoint, first thing is their special teams analyst was here with us for 2 years, Tyler Hancock, and they're really good on punt. They've done a nice job of covering. Their kickoff returns have had several explosives. They mix up the returners. And then their punt return's been the real bright spot for them. And they've got one of the receivers, number 34, Josh Cameron, and he's a big kid, man. He's 6'1", 215, 220 pounds, so bigger than your normal punt returner, but he's doing a really nice job, and he's had multiple explosive returns. And then they've ran a lot of fakes, field goal fake, punt fake. They've tried an onside kick. I mean, they've done a bunch of different things here in the last few weeks, so we've got to be aware. Offensively, Coach Grimes does a really good job. They're unique in our league. Probably them and Iowa State are the most similar, but a lot of 12 personnel. They even get into some 13 personnel with 3 tight ends. Their tight ends have a multitude of skills. They do a lot of shifts and motions, and so I think alignment will be the key, the real critical point for us. And they've got a good wide receiver crew. Talked about the Cameron kid, number 34. Monterey Baldwin can really run. He had a big game against us last year as a true freshman. I mean, he's fast. And then the guy that's really came on is Jackson, number 11, and probably been their most consistent. And he can run, downfield threat. They've done a really nice job of passing the ball up toward the top of every passing stat in our league. And then they got 2 good running backs. The Reese is really fast. He hurt us last year. Then they got the Dominic Richardson that transferred from Oklahoma State, and he's a really tough, hard, physical runner. Defensively, like I said, a lot of respect for Dave. He's done it for a long time. We've played at multiple places. Their DC and I work together at Kentucky. Matt Pallage, he's a really good football mind. For me, it starts with their D-line. They're extremely well coached. They got great size and length. They rotate a bunch of guys in there. They can rush the passer. They're going to play in a lot of different fronts, a lot of simulated pressures, 4 or 5 man pressures, mix up their coverage looks, and it'll be a challenge. They're going to definitely try to confuse Garrett. Always have a really good third down package, and so the key for us is we've got to have a good week, and then we got to handle the travel and handle playing at night down in a venue that we've struggled at. So we've got to be able to answer that. And we're playing, other than the Oklahoma game, we've played our best football down the in the last part of the season. We got to continue that and get better on Tuesday and Wednesday, and go try to get our 6th conference win or 8th win of the season. So with that, questions, John, you start us off there, bud.
I'm starting you off.
Yep. Okay. Greg's down, Kevin's down. Bob skipped on Saturday, so you're up.
Yeah, well, let me think of one. No, just overall, are you happy with where your offense is progressing with Garrett and the way you're been able to play off of different things with his running game and so forth?
So if if that Oklahoma game wasn't still stuck in my mind, the answer would be yes. But like, that was a setback for sure. But we're becoming kind of who I thought we would be when we kind of made this shift. Three or so games left in the year last year, where we're making it difficult to defend the entire field. From a run game perspective, from sideline to sideline. We're splitting the defense, doing a bunch of different things, off some base run plays, and then vertically getting the ball downfield. And so, and it's all dependent on how our quarterback plays. And he's played, other than the Oklahoma game, I think his level of play has continued to get better and better. And other than one real boneheaded throw the other day, he's taking care of the football. And so, I think there's things we can continue to get better at, but I like kind of where we're heading offensively.
Real quick here, is it nice to be able to have explosives? You think of the baseball analogy, it takes 3 hits to get a run instead of a 3-run homer. You're starting to get those 3-run homers.
Yeah, well, we have, and early in the year we were having these drives. It just took forever. Well, it's good for time of possession. Our defense isn't playing a whole lot, but it's hard because one negative play knocks you out, and so we feel like we've got some guys that can make explosive plays. Garrett is got by far the most, but Jaheim, CJ, and then Devin has shown the ability, Cole's shown the ability, but our young wideouts, those are the guys that I'm kind of excited about here as we finish up season heading into bowl prep. Traylon Ray, Hudson, Rodney, Preston's been really consistent, but I'm excited to see those young guys and how they finish up the next 2 games.
10 years ago, would you have thought you'd have coached a team that rushed for 424 yards? And
Yeah.
Have you changed, or has football changed, or what's changed?
Yeah, I laugh because a guy that coached me sent me a text the other day and said he was just laughing, because early on, we were, when I started doing this back in calling plays back in 2008, we had a really good run there. We were top 5 in passing for several years, and now to kind of flip it, we had a really good rushing year at Troy. My last year there too. Our starting quarterback got hurt, and we were a predominant run team. But it is. It's been kind of a 180. I think this is what this is best for this team. I think that and history's proven this too. Here is the most effective way to win is with a dual threat quarterback, and so. I think that, and the game's changed too. I think there's some changes in the game that that have pushed us to this point too. But if you asked me 10 years ago if we were, going to be 4th in the country in rushing, I wouldn't have probably didn't have the vision for that. But we've recruited well on the offensive line. Our quarterback is a game changer, and we've got multiple running backs that can play, and our tight ends have done a nice job. So, I think the pieces we have in place right now is we're utilizing them in the best way.
To Bob's point, though, it matches the climate that you could encounter here too, right?
Yeah, it's I think the climate is a factor. I think that taking advantage of the people that are drivable from a recruiting standpoint too. I think that's a factor as well.
You mentioned it. Is it just coincidence that the really good West Virginia quarterbacks, Major, Pat, are dual threat? I mean, Skylar Howard even. Is it just coincidence?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's been some good passers too. Some, whether Geno or Bolger or Hostetler. I mean, there's been a little bit of both. But I think that, I think the dual threat. This is to me kind of where I landed on this. Last December is really kind of, if you go back and you look, it gives you a chance. Like, you don't have to be perfect. Sometimes if you have a passing quarterback and you're playing somebody that's more talented than you got to be really perfect, or you got to do some things that are non-traditional as far as rub routes, different ways to protect the passer, things like that, where if you have a dual threat, you don't have to be as perfect. And so that's kind of where we ended on it. So CJ, we took him out early in the third. He will not practice today. He didn't practice today. He won't practice tomorrow. We'll get him going Wednesday. Use Doug in the same, give them a little bit more time to come back. I think both will end up being ready to go. I'll know more after Wednesday's practice, but I feel like both will probably be ready. We won't play either unless they be close to 100. CJ warmed up well, so we gave him a few carries, but as it cooled off, he kind of got stiff, so we took him out. And then defensively, just trying to think, anybody in particular? Those are kind of the two. So Yates came out early in the game. He's going through a protocol. I think, hopefully he'll be back. We'll see how the next 2 days go.
You talked a couple weeks ago about the ball hawk rate stat and the aggressiveness and actually leading the country in that, but that it also shows you're missing turnovers. And then that was something you brought up as an issue in this past game despite the win. How would you evaluate that since that stat was put out there?
Yeah.
And then is there something you can do to try to change that? Or?
Well, I think it just goes back to you got to catch the ball. And this is going to be overly simplistic, but two things. And while we're dropping interceptions, we're leaving our feet, which means we're jumping on balls that you don't need to jump for. And when you do that, anytime you leave your feet, your level of vision changes. And so if you're not a natural ball catcher, it makes it even more difficult. And so the other thing is our hands are apart, which is very elementary, but if your hands are apart, you got less chance. And so you got to get, if it's above your waist, get your pointing fingers together. If it's below your waist, you put your pinkies together. And Dax and I work on it pretty standard. And those are really the reasons why we're missing those opportunities. And so has changed? Probably not. We dropped 2. We continue to work ball drills every single day in the secondary. But you got to be able to execute those fundamentals in a game situation.
What have you seen out of Shapen? Because I've seen him up here last year.
Yeah, I think the kid's really tough. He's got hit quite a bit this year, and he steps up in the pocket. I thought they dropped some passes in the first half versus TCU, but I thought he was really on. He had a couple balls on post balls that he hit guys in stride. He gets the ball out fast. You can tell he has really good control of what they do. I like his skill set. I really do. He's a good athlete. He can run. He probably hasn't gotten, because what their record is, he probably hasn't got talked about as much. But the kid can play. He can spin the ball.
You had those 3 first plays all go to the true freshman, and it seems like that was by design. What about those 3 guys just add something else to this offense, especially as they continue to develop into November?
Yeah, so I think they're guys that came in. Jaheim got here early, and so he was a little further ahead. They're all 3 really good friends, which is coincidental, but they're all good friends. I think they all got high talent, and they've worked and bought in. And so Rodney is a guy that multiple sport athlete. He's got to continue to get stronger. This offseason is going to be big for him. He knows that, and really continue to work on his craft running routes. He hasn't had to do it a whole lot, but he's shown the ability that he can make plays with the ball in his hands. He can break tackles. He's really elusive, and when he learns and understands route running and he gets stronger, I think he's got a chance to be special. Traylon Ray's really come on. I say this every time we talk about him. He didn't get here until July, end of June, right? So he hadn't been in college very long. And so he's going to get – I think this offseason, like when we get into spring ball, he's going to be a really different guy as far as how he'll probably put on 10 pounds and he's going to get faster. And I think he's got a chance to be an elite outside receiver. And then Jaheim, it's starting to come together for him. And, he's not real tall, but he's strong. And he's compact, and he breaks tackles, and he's really shifty. And I think the offseason, what it's going to do for him is going to give him straight line speed. He's not slow right now, but I think he's even going to get faster.
One more about the dual threat quarterback. Is that going to change your philosophy, or have you thought about that, about how you're going to recruit kids in the future to fit what you're doing right now?
Yeah, it has. You know, if you look at who we have committed, you know, both of those guys are dual threat guys, and that's that. We're going to continue to stay with that.
Improvements in season on offense. Some of it's getting your quarterback healthy, being able to practice and all that. But would you say you're doing your stuff better, or are you doing just better stuff? Just seems like you have more like bells and whistles, like noticeable plays that seem to work.
So, what really, and I think, and you may ask this a couple weeks ago, but early in the season, once Garrett got hurt, we had to be really careful because it wasn't Nico's lack of ability to do what we're doing. He's more than capable, but we had to be really careful with running him because we didn't have anybody with any experience behind him, and so we had to go in kind of and be a lot more conservative than we really wanted to, even in the run game, as far as not doing a bunch of the read stuff and things like that could potentially put him at risk. And then I think as we've kind of moved through the season, is our comfortability with what Garrett can and can't do, and an understanding of what he sees in the run game, and also I think that our running backs have made significant improvement, and you can look at yards per carry for each of the guys that's playing. I don't think our blocking's necessarily changed. I feel like we've blocked at a high level all year. Our tight end play's probably been better right at the point of contact. But we've blocked really well all year. What we're doing a better job of at running back is our paths on our to get to the line of scrimmage are better. We're doing a better job setting up our blocks, and then we're breaking tackles. And so I think those are probably the two areas at quarterback, just understanding kind of what he does best, and then making sure we have two healthy ones, and then our running backs just improving their play. And then from a game plan perspective, we are doing a little bit more. Again, I think that goes back to Garrett growing and us having a lot more confidence in him.
About just putting a lot on his shoulders. When do you feel comfortable doing that? Is it after a period of time? Do you see things consistently? It just seems like a lot to say about someone.
Yeah, so really we started like back in the spring, and he's kind of a trial and error guy. Like he's on a yes sir, yes sir, yes sir, and then he says that, and I'm like, we'll see if he really gets that or not. And so you trial and error a little bit in spring, and then you do the same thing kind of in your OTAs in the summer and then in fall camp. Kind of cautious in the Penn State game because I wanted to make sure that he had a level of success because, in that environment versus that defense in the first game of the season could have done some real harm, could have set him back confident level. And then we were getting ready to kind of break wide open and kind of do what we've been doing against Pitt when he got hurt. And I thought, he had kind of he had the Penn State game, had confidence coming out there. He practiced really well for 2 weeks. He threw those deep balls really well versus Duquesne, after the lightning break. And so his confidence was really coming along, and we were getting, and then the injury hit. And then after TCU, once I felt like, okay, he's healthy, he can run, that's kind of when we were like, okay, hey, we're going to go, we're going to win games because of him.
Yes, I was kind of just going to clarify that his health and ability almost not to say the early season was in any way treated like an NFL preseason, but he needed games under his belt to kind of get that progression. That was what allowed you to be even more aggressive as a play caller?
Well, no, I think we wanted to make sure that he had a really good understanding of what we were trying to do. I think that we were careful in the Penn State game because that could have been a real detrimental game to his confidence level because how good they were and in that environment. But he played well. And he missed a couple throws, but he played well. And then he hit those, threw for a bunch of yards versus Duquesne. And then after the injury, so going back to that TCU week, he didn't practice all week till Thursday, and so he goes out and plays. And played pretty well for not practicing. And I think for him, he was like, okay, I'm back. My ankle's fine. And I can do this. And he made some wild runs and a couple wild throws. Like if you remember that touchdown run he had versus TCU where he just pulled down and scrambled, that was by far like 4 or 5, almost a full 4 miles per hour faster than he'd ran in like 2.5 weeks. And so that was a wild run. And if you remember, we had a 2-minute drill right before the half. And it was one of those deals. We had like 30 seconds to go, and we could have just taken a knee. And I was like, and I told the guys on the headset, I was like, listen, we're gonna go try to score here. Let's see what he's got. And he threw a BB on a dig and set up a field goal. He had he had a scramble, and then he threw that dig and set up a field goal that we made, but then it was taken away because Malone jumped off sides. But really, from that point forward, I was like, okay, all right, he's ready. Let's go do this.
Real quick, Penn State game, you went inside and turned the noise up. Do you go inside and turn the heat up this week?
Yeah, I haven't looked at the weather yet, John. Like, it's probably going to be warmer there than it is here. But you know,
Something to think about.
yeah, it's we practice inside today just because we're trying to keep them, minimal running. It's easier to kind of manage workloads inside. But if it's going to be warm there, we've done that before. We did that when we went out to Arizona for the bowl game, and we'll do that.
This is more an NFL thing, but is this like a trap game scenario for you guys? The team with a bad record, and you don't want to overlook them at the end of the year.
Yeah, I'm not sure we need to be overlooking anybody. I think to me it's just about finishing. This is got a singular focus this week. Only game. There's not any school stuff to worry about. And they've really dominated us down there. Not just I think 1-4 is a program down there, and we went down there in rules last year and had a chance to beat them, and they beat us right at the end of the game, and they had a really good team, and then they smoked us down there in 21. And so, we understand it's a tough place to play. You got to stay about an hour away, and so there's some things that we got to handle from a travel standpoint that are a little unique. But for me, it's just for us, we got to continue to play well, and that's what kind of is that Oklahoma game's in my crawl. Not that we lost, but we just didn't play very well. And so for me, it's about playing good football, and that's really what the push is this week, to go play good football.
Because this team is driven by either inexperienced or younger players, even though you do have some veterans, do you have to have any conversation about, like, a lot of bowl projections are out there, certainly that you clinched being in something and kind of put that away? Because
So really, yeah, so what we talk about is really, there's a season for everything, right? There's a season when people are going to worry about NIL, and there's a season where they're going to worry about transferring, and there's a season where they're going to worry about bowl. Well, we're in the season of we have one game a week. We're in the regular season, and we have to have a singular focus on this week and simply playing our best. And, we didn't handle our last road trip very well, and so that's kind of an extra incentive there. But that's all we're talking. We're not getting very carried away with it. Mike, you had a question?
You only had 12 guys walk. I know that's not like a complete list, but that's a small number, I think. And then I know you said that you weren't sure, but like Zach's one that are there any others that are like you're sure about that they're gone, or is it that wide open?
No, I think that, a lot of those guys are expired eligibility that walked. And here's how I handle this, and this is probably simplistic, but this is in a team meeting. I say, if you want, whoever's going to walk for senior day, you'll stay so I can talk to them and see who's going to walk. And then that's how we take who's going to walk. It's not, a few years ago, I kind of made a big deal and you learn, you make mistakes and you learn. I kind of made a big deal about who was going to walk and who wasn't, and that was going to mean if you were coming back or not. And so I don't think that's the best way to handle it. I made a mistake then, so now I just kind of we'll handle all those decisions after the regular season as far as, who's coming back, who wants to use the extra year. But those are the guys that wanted to walk, like Doug Nestor walked last year. He came back. We had other people that Dante did it twice. Call them senior day veterans. But so just because somebody walked doesn't mean they're not coming back. But it just means that, I think that they're kind of thinking through what their future is going to be.
I know this goes against the whole singular focus piece here, but when it comes to the transfer portal, what positions are you guys going to be focusing on?
Ask me next week. Ask me next week. That's what. Here's you got to remember. Like as a coach, I got to be singular focused too. So I've got people that work on those things, and we'll deal with that probably as soon as I get on the plane to come back from Waco. So I won't dodge that question. I won't dodge that next week, but this week I will. All right. Y'all have a good Thanksgiving. Thanks.